And we're live on the air.
I guess. I'm taking my pulse now. Yes, I'm live on the air. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Live from beautiful downtown.
Can we try to have fun? I mean, this is we're being way too serious here. Caroline Levitt. I mean, we're talking about such an upgrade from the last DEI hire.
Lord.
You could see her as a DEI hire. She is a female, so and she does believe in male and female. So I like that about her. But she's as good so far, if not better, than Sarah Huckabee Sanders and Kayleigh McEnany. And oh my gosh, that's just recent history. I think that since they've come over to just females, we haven't had a male since George Bush, right? George W. Bush.
Yeah, it's been a while. I can't think how far back it has been.
Yeah, I can't even remember his name, but he's a conservative pundit now. But anyway, here she is after one of our legacy media outlets asked her if if they were out of touch, and this is what she had to say.
Media out of touch? I think that media certainly is out of touch. And I think that's proven by a number of things, John. Number one, there was a New York Times poll that was released prior to President Trump's inauguration by the New York Times, which of course is a legacy media outlet, that showed that 83% of Americans support deporting the individuals that you mentioned, illegal immigrant criminals, especially those who have committed heinous crimes in the interior of our country. And I received a very actually interesting statistic on this front from ICE this week. 97% of the deportations that this administration has made thus far are of individuals who had a removal order from the previous administration, but were never removed from the interior of our country. So this shows that the previous administration was actually defying our laws, and all this administration is doing is simply following the laws, the immigration laws of this great country.
Upholding them. Never opened a binder. If you saw the video,
yeah,
she just these stats.
She hardly. I saw her came out to one briefing and she had like 4 pieces of paper, and she split them up into 2 different sides on stuff, and then she hardly ever looked at those.
Exactly, because she knows her stuff. We're so used to seeing whoever's up there opening a binder and going, "Well, let me look here."
Let's see. Let me flip that. What do we got going here? Let's see. I can't. Oh wait, it's not. Oh well, no, I don't have the. Oh well, let me see if I've got that tab. Good Lord.
Yeah, this is the difference between somebody who's done their homework and knows the issues. And she came up with that stat from the last administration just off the top of her head. I don't think she was even prepared to talk about that, seemingly, but she was. So.
Oh, she had an incident, I believe it was yesterday, where she was talking to the press briefly outside. I don't know the reason for them being outside or why she was speaking, but she had the list of some of the stuff we talked about earlier with Doge.
Yeah,
what they were doing. And she goes, and frankly, I'm sick and tired of my taxes going to crap like this. Absolutely. I just went, go get them, girl. I mean, she's cut and dried. Here's what it is. This is the facts, and we're not screwing around. I love how she told the people when her first meeting there was that, and if we have any lies that are coming out, we're going to squelch it right there, then and there. I will call you out. And she has. And you know what? They've slowed down.
They sure did. She also announced the other day, and I forgot about this. I didn't put it in our show notes or anything, but she had said that they're going to start rotating these people out to bring in people like Newsmax and News Nation and real journalists
and some of those, yeah.
OANN, yeah, exactly. They're going to start rotating the CNNs and the MSNBCs out because they're not real news organizations anyway. They're just there to be
propaganda machine.
Yeah, they're trying to do gotcha stuff, and it's like he doesn't have time for all that.
Yeah, so. She's not having it, and they've it's slowed down severely. If you're going to bring up and have a point of view and make a comment to the effect of something that damn good and well is not right, and what you're saying happened didn't, she's called them out. I've already heard it like 3 times, and it's just really quieted down on that front.
See, the thing is, it's like it used to be the American media was very little opinion and all about, this is what happened, as opposed to what it is today. It's almost all opinion and not about, Fox News is just as bad. I mean, they don't, there are certain segments that will report the news, but a lot of it is opinion. But MSNBC and CNN has taken it on steroids now, and it's like it's just nothing but opinion. And this is our agenda, and we're going to ram it down your throat. So
Yeah, it's like no.
working. It's not working.
So yeah, we're rooting for her all the time, and for being 27 years old and the way she carries herself and her confidence and how bright she is, she is just really a breath of fresh air to have this come about. So
She's incredible.
yep.
Like you said, for being 27. I mean, I'm a few years past 27. I'm not even close to as smart as she is. I mean, let's I aspire to be, but I doubt it by now.
I barely knew what to do with my two daughters. I didn't have the third one yet. It's like we got two. What do I do with it?
Oh my gosh. Well, let's talk a little bit about the plane and Black Hawk helicopter crash from last week. It's a tragic, tragic story. And I got to admit, when Trump first came out and he blamed the air traffic controllers, the pilots, DEI hires, and all that kind of stuff, I'm thinking, man, that's some of the most inappropriate stuff I've heard him do. And it's like, man, these bodies haven't even been recovered yet. It just seemed completely wrong. I hated it. But even though the timing isn't the way I would have liked, he did have some good points that have kind of turned out to be
Yeah, a little closer to the truth is basically what it amounts to.
absolutely. We did find that there's a nationwide shortage of 3,000 people working in air traffic control, including the tower where this took place. There was supposed to be 30 people working that night, and there was 19. And it wasn't 20 because they sent somebody home earlier that during that shift. There's reasons for that. Oh my gosh. There's an ongoing class action lawsuit. Did you see about this?
No, I haven't seen that.
The FAA has I think there's 1,000 people, qualified white people now.
Oh, yes. No,
Yeah.
no, I have heard of that. Yeah, go ahead.
They got denied a job at the FAA because their hiring would not have fulfilled their DEI quotas, which I know that they're going to kind of throw out the window eventually. But supposedly they would, there's a class that you can take. I think it's 2-year type add-on degree where you can learn to be air traffic controller, to be completely qualified to be an air traffic controller. But God help you if you are a white male, especially, then you are at the bottom of the list. I don't care whether you graduated at the top of the class, but they are looking for uh, people of any other demographic. It doesn't seem to matter, and they can't get enough people by doing that because you eliminate a large portion. We are a country of well over half white people. I mean, it's just the way it works. Not that I like it
We
or is
are
promoting this. It's just it is.
European descent, folks. Sorry, that's the way it is.
So you're going to have more white people than any other demographic.
Yeah.
So I mean, what are you going to do? I think
Um, and speaking of the FAA, did you see where the one, I believe it was a senator that was talking to the gentleman that was in charge of the FAA? He was asking all these questions. He had no clue. He didn't.
what
He's
was
never. He goes, "I'm sorry, I don't know that. I've never flown a plane." Aren't you in charge of
at,
planes
at
flying?
this time was it? If I'm remembering, I heard that. I think the interview that you're talking about during his confirmation. I don't think that. I think that was during the Biden administration,
Yeah.
and they hired him because he was a black guy, I guess.
Yep.
Unfortunately, but I mean that's
Had no clue.
had no clue. He admitted he never worked in the airline industry, never worked as a mechanic, never worked in as air traffic controller, never worked in any kind of capacity in the airline industry.
Yeah,
So
he
he
was
makes it
asked about a
qualified.
particular part of a plane and what was, well, I can Google that and look it up. Really? No, you're
I mean,
head of the FAA. Jeez, I don't want to depend on Google for flying.
I know. I mean, that's the thing. You don't want to. Well, hang on a second. Let me Google that. Make sure I'm making the right decision. Like, but I mean, I don't care. And this is the way conservatives look at things, like it or not. I don't care what color you are. If he was qualified, so be it. Who cares?
I could care less if he was purple. It don't make no difference to me. But you got somebody in there that's, yeah, let's hire that guy. Hey, you, come here. Want to be the FAA chairman? What?
Well, it's like when Biden first got the nomination, he said he wanted a black female. Well, all of a sudden, you've taken the pool of very qualified people and narrowed it down to about four at that point, that was in that tier of people in the government that would be qualified to be vice president. And one of them was Kamala, I guess. But I mean, but why would you narrow your search just because somebody has more melanin in their skin? I just don't understand.
Well, that's that we heard their voting rules
Yeah.
earlier on the DNC search. It's like what the guy reading them didn't, I don't think, understood what he was reading. It was ridiculous. What do you mean, a male, female, and any other sex? Huh? Just what? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We're going to probably go a little bit long on this segment, but we got a great clip from Rand Paul.
Oh
This is,
yes.
for lack of a better term, a rant by Senator Rand Paul at the
This is
RFK.
awesome.
It is awesome. At the RFK confirmation hearing. This is right after Louisiana Senator Cassidy, who's a big rhino, grilled RFK about the hepatitis B vaccine. And I learned something about that. I'll let Rand Paul explain it because he's so much better at that. But anyway, he makes some great points, and I wanted to play the whole thing. So here we go.
I think the discussion over vaccines is so oversimplified and dumbed down that we never really get to real truths. And it's why people up here are so separated from real people at home. So we talk about hepatitis B. It's a terrible disease. It could lead to liver failure, as the chairman said. But the reason you have distrust from people at home, why they don't believe anything you say, they don't believe government at all, is you're telling my kid to take a hepatitis B vaccine when he's 1 day old. You get it through drug use and sexually transmitted. That's how you get hepatitis B. But you're telling me my kid has to take it at 1 day old. That's not science. And so every person with a bit of common sense, even people who don't resist vaccines, I vaccinated all my kids. I believe vaccines are one of the modern miracles beyond all pale. The Speckled Monster is a great book about the introduction of the smallpox vaccine in 1720 into our country. All miracles. But I'm not a one size fits all. It's not all or nothing. I chose to wait on my hepatitis B vaccine, and we did it when they went to school. Does that make me an awful person? Does that make me an anti-vaxxer because I questioned the government dictate of whether I do it? And I'm not speaking for anybody else. I'm only speaking for myself. But for goodness sakes, let's have an honest debate about these things. The COVID vaccine. If you ask me my opinion, the reporters run up and down the hall and they say, you still anti-vaccine? No, I'm pro-vaccine. But on the COVID vaccine, and on the COVID illness, there was a 1,000-fold or more difference between the elderly and children. If you don't acknowledge that, you're committing malpractice. You're showing your ignorance. If you say a 6-month-old must be mandated to get it, the science is not there. So all this blather about the science says this and the science says that, no, it doesn't. The science actually shows that no healthy child in America died from COVID. Look it up. No healthy child died from COVID. And so the thing is that it's 1,000-fold greater. So if you ask me my advice as a physician, if you were 65 or older or overweight and some other conditions, I would have said, hell yes, I'd take the COVID vaccine. The risks of the disease were real and much greater than the vaccine. But if you ask me, should my healthy 6-month-old get it? See, these are the nuances you're unwilling to talk about because there's such a belief in submission. Submit to the government. Do what you're told. There is no discussion. There ought to be a debate. You're not going to let him have the debate because you're just going to criticize and say, it is this and admit to it or we're not going to appoint you. But it's more complicated than that. And this is why people distrust government because you're unwilling to have these conversations. And go home, ask your Democrat young mothers, your Republican young mothers, if they're vaccinating their kid for hepatitis B and they're like, well, do I have to do it on day one? It's this precious little baby. Is there science to say you shouldn't do it? Probably not, but it's my kid. It's like there isn't clear-cut science saying not to. But on autism, there's no good science of anything to show what causes autism. We don't know. It's a profound disease. I know many moms here and dads who have kids with autism. I know them personally. I've met their kids. But the thing is they saw their kids developing completely normal, maybe speaking 100 words go to no words at about 15 months of age. No, there isn't proof. There isn't proof that the vaccines cause it. That's true. There isn't proof that it causes it, but we don't know what causes it yet. So shouldn't we be at least open-minded? We take 72 vaccines. Could it be? I don't know. But we shouldn't just close the door and say we're no longer, because we believe so much in submission, we're not going to have an open mind to study these things. And so it's sort of this crazy notion. Schizophrenia, I would put in the same notion. You have a kid who's completely normal to 18 or 19, and their brain goes haywire. How does that happen? It's the most bizarre disease. Shouldn't we be open? Could it be our food? It might be vaccines. It might be our food, but autism is more common. I don't know about the schizophrenia statistics, but autism is more common. Shouldn't we want to be open-minded? Instead, we're so close-minded and we're so consensus-driven that the science says this. Science doesn't say anything. Science is a dispute, and 10 years from now, we could all be wrong. We were told in the beginning, 20 years ago, they did this enormous study, and they said, everybody over 50 should take an aspirin. I thought, well, that's a pretty good idea. It makes sense. But you know what? 20 years later, they measured it. And they found if you had no heart disease and you were taking aspirin, your chance of dying from a brain bleed or from a stomach bleed were greater than the risk of heart disease. If you have heart disease, they still say take an aspirin. If you don't, they've changed their mind 20 years later. But would you have all said I was crazy and I should no longer be in public discourse if I had said 20 years ago, I don't feel like taking an aspirin. I ride my bike all the time. I'm afraid I might hit my head. But that's what country's about. It's what dissent is about. So just ask you to look at the larger picture and give the guy a break who says, I just want to follow the science where it leads without presupposition. I think really what we have up here is presupposition. You've already concluded. It's absolute that autism isn't caused by it. We don't know what causes autism, so we should be more humble in what we say. Sorry, I didn't get to a question.
Gotta love them. Gotta love them. And they were just nailing RFK because all they did was question. What's wrong with asking a question?
Yeah, it's okay to ask a question, and we've talked before that 99 out of 100 scientists who've been paid agree with whatever they've been paid to say they agree with, and that's really sad, and that's not science. I was reading that back in my day when I was in school, it was 1 in 10,000 got autism. Now it's 1 in 34.
Right. And RFK actually said when he was a kid, I think he said there was like 7 vaccines, and now there's 72. So I'm like,
that's ridiculous. Your body can't handle all that, especially that little tiny baby.
Yeah. And like Rand Paul said, we ought to have the lack of hubris to go, we have no idea. I mean, let's see if we can find out what's causing it. I do think it's a combination. I think with our food, all these dyes and all this kind of stuff that we allow into our food as Americans, hopefully that's going to all go away. But they don't even do that in Canada. You look at the ingredients list on a bag of chips in Canada, it's different, way different than it is here.
What did we start buying? We like the prepackaged because it keeps me from eating a half a big bag of potato chips, but it's Miss Vicky's. You look at it and it's potato chips, what it was fried in, and some sea salt. That's it. There's nothing else in it.
I buy the smaller bags of the Miss Vicky's salt and vinegar. I do the same thing.
Yeah, I like that one. That's a good one. But yeah, it's just there's nothing in it except for potatoes, a little salt, and the oil it's cooked in. That's it. So,
and the oil it's cooked in, the hydrogenated stuff. Yeah, I mean, but you can't get away from that. You just got to limit your intake of it.
Yeah, it's called moderation, people. But
again, asking questions is not a bad thing. Don't let people tell you you're anti-vaxxer or you're an election denier just because you question is like, well, none of this makes sense. How did Biden get 81 million votes and nobody's come close to 81 million votes in the history of the country?
Yeah. The stuff where scientists are paid. Well, I think it is a Bill Gates deal that put out Jillian Michaels. Do you remember her?
Right, absolutely.
Was talking about 17,000 doctors are all against Kennedy, and he shouldn't be confirmed. And then she goes, and I looked on there, and I've signed it twice as Dr. BS, Dr. Fake.
Yeah.
Anybody could put their name on it and say it's Dr. So-and-so. It was so just, again, garbage from the left.
Yep. And you got to wonder who signed her name to it, because obviously she had no idea.
Oh, she said she did it.
Oh,
she put it in. Yeah, when it came around before, she goes, well, let me sign it. You can sign it as many times as you want. She had two different names, Dr. BS and Dr.
Well, as it stands now, she's not necessarily against RFK. So I mean, I
Yeah,
guess
it's-
when she read
Yeah,
it,
she's not, but it's look, this is not the way to do it. It's a smear campaign, and the Democrats are doing what they've always done, and they're going to have to stop one of these days. They're not going to have a party left.
I think it's getting that way right now.
Yeah, it's pretty darn close. Oh, gee, that hurts my feelings. Anyhow,
Hey, we're up against the break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the parties over in Europe and how they're starting to
oh, not
change
that kind.
their direction. Not that party.
Oh, okay.
That's in October. Uh, actually, it's in September. It's Oktoberfest. But
That's true.
anyway, way off base. So hang in there. We'll be right back.